Maya didn't know that the man she was about to humiliate herself in front of was the Alpha King of the Northern Territories. She didn't know he'd been watching her for weeks, drawn by something he couldn't name. And she certainly didn't know that her desperate plea would bind her to him forever. The bitter coffee burned her tongue, but not as much as the laughter from the table behind her. Maya hunched deeper into her oversized sweater, trying to disappear into the cracked leather booth of her favourite coffee shop, the same coffee shop where, apparently, half her office had decided to grab lunch. "Poor Maya," Jennifer's voice carried across the small space, sharp with false sympathy. "Still planning to show up alone to the gala tomorrow night? How embarrassing." "Well, what did you expect after Derek dumped her?" Sarah's giggle was razor-edged. "He said she wasn't suitable for his position." "Smart man, really. Can you imagine Maya trying to fit in with actual important people?" Heat flooded Maya's cheeks. She gripped her coffee cup tighter, the ceramic warm against her suddenly cold fingers. The annual company gala. Tomorrow night, where Derek would debut his new fiancée, a senator's daughter with the right breeding and bank account. "I heard she's not even going," Jennifer continued, her voice dropping to a stage whisper that somehow carried even more clearly. Too ashamed to face everyone, probably for the best. Second-hand dress, bargain shoes, she'd stick out like a sore thumb. Something cracked inside Maya's chest. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Every eye in the coffee shop turned to her, including the man sitting alone in the corner booth. She'd noticed him when she came in. Impossible not to, really. Tall even sitting down, with dark hair and eyes like molten silver. The kind of man who belonged in boardrooms or on magazine covers, not in this little coffee shop on the wrong side of downtown. He was watching her now, those strange pale eyes intent on her face. Maya felt heat crawl up her neck. Of course he'd heard every humiliating word. Perfect. But something in his expression, not pity, not amusement, but something else entirely, gave her a burst of reckless courage. Before she could lose her nerve, Maya walked over to his table. "I'm sorry to bother you," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked up from his newspaper, and up close his eyes were even more startling, silver gold, like sunlight on winter ice. "But I have a completely insane request." He folded the newspaper carefully, giving her his full attention. "I'm listening." Maya glanced back at Jennifer and Sarah, who were watching with wide eyes and open mouths. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was crazy, absolutely crazy. "There's this company event tomorrow night," she rushed on. "A gala, and She swallowed hard. "Pretend to be my boyfriend tonight," she begged, the words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "Just for one evening. I know how it sounds. I know you don't know me, but—" The man's mouth curved into a slow smile. Not mocking, not cruel, but genuinely amused. He leaned back in his seat, studying her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Consider it done." Maya blinked. "What?" "I said yes." His voice was deeper than she'd expected, with a slight accent she couldn't place. "What time should I pick you up?" You're serious?" She stared at him, waiting for the punchline. Men who looked like him didn't help women like her. They didn't even notice women like her. Completely. He stood, and Maya had to crane her neck to look at him. He was even taller than she'd thought, broad-shouldered and elegant in a way that spoke of money and power. Everything about him screamed that he didn't belong in this neighbourhood, in this coffee shop, talking to her. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would you—" "Maybe I have my reasons." He pulled a business card from his jacket pocket, his fingers brushing hers as he pressed it into her palm. The contact sent an unexpected jolt of warmth up her arm, like touching a live wire. 7 o'clock tomorrow?" Maya nodded, still staring at him in shock, and behind her she could hear Jennifer and Sarah's urgent whispers, but their words seemed to come from very far away. "Good!" His smile widened, and something in his eyes made her stomach flutter. "I'm looking forward to it, Maya." She hadn't told him her name. How did you—" But he was already walking away, moving through the coffee shop with predatory grace. Maya watched him go, her heart racing for reasons she couldn't begin to understand. At the door, he turned back, catching her eye across the room. "Wear blue," he said quietly, but somehow she heard him perfectly. "It'll bring out your eyes." And then he was gone, leaving Maya standing frozen in the middle of the coffee shop, a business card burning in her palm and questions spinning in her head. Behind her, Jennifer and Sarah had gone completely silent. Maya looked down at the card, heavy, expensive paper. No name, just a phone number embossed in silver. Her hands were shaking. What had she just done? "Oh, Maya!" Sarah's voice was small, uncertain. "Who was that?" Maya turned, and for the first time in months she smiled. "My date for tomorrow night." She walked out of the coffee shop with her head held high, leaving Jennifer and Sarah gaping behind her. But as the cool air hit her face, reality crashed back down. She'd just asked a complete stranger to pretend to be her boyfriend. A stranger who'd said yes without hesitation, who somehow knew her name, who looked at her like he could see straight through to her soul. A stranger who'd made her feel, for just a moment, like maybe she was worth something after all. Maya clutched the business card tighter and headed home, her mind already spinning with 1,000 questions and absolutely no answers. Tomorrow night couldn't come fast enough. And somewhere across the city, in a penthouse office overlooking the harbour, Adrian Blackthorne set down his phone and smiled. He'd been waiting weeks for an excuse to approach her. Protecting her from the shadows, ensuring her safety, learning everything about the woman his wolf had claimed the moment he'd seen her. His mate had finally asked for his help. It was about time. The knock on Maya's door came at exactly 6:30 the next evening. She'd spent the day in a state of nervous energy, alternating between excitement and terror, checking her phone every 5 minutes to see if he'd changed his mind. The business card sat on her kitchen counter like a talisman, proof that yesterday had actually happened. Maya opened the door, and her breath caught. If she'd thought he was impressive in the coffee shop, seeing him in a perfectly tailored black suit nearly brought her to her knees. He looked like he'd stepped off the cover of a magazine, all sharp angles and elegant lines, with those impossible silver eyes that seemed to see straight through her. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and the warmth in his voice made her stomach flutter. Maya glanced down at her simple black dress, the only formal thing she owned. "This old thing? I was planning to—" "We're going shopping." He checked his watch, a piece of gleaming metal that probably cost more than her monthly salary. "The stores will stay open late for us." "I can't let you buy me a dress." Heat flooded her cheeks. "This is already too much. I don't even know your name." Something flickered across his face. "Adrian," he said after a pause. "And yes, you can. You will." There was something in his tone, not demanding but absolutely certain, that made arguments die in her throat. Maya grabbed her purse, her hands shaking slightly as she locked the door behind her. The car waiting at the curb made her stop dead, sleek, black and expensive enough to feed a small country. A driver in a crisp uniform stood beside the open door, his posture military straight. "Your Maje," the driver began, but Adrian cut him off with a sharp look. "James," Adrian said smoothly, "this is Maya. Maya, James will be driving us tonight." Maya slid into the leather interior, trying not to gape at the luxury surrounding her. Adrian settled beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and woodsy that made her want to lean closer. "Adrian," she said carefully as the car pulled into traffic. "What do you do for a living?" "I manage family interest," he replied, which wasn't really an answer at all. "Tell me about Derek." The change of subject was so abrupt that Maya blinked. "Derek? Why do you want to know about him?" "Because someone hurt you badly enough that you'd rather ask a stranger for help than face an evening alone." Adrian's voice was gentle, but there was something dangerous underneath it. "I'd like to understand what I'm walking into." Maya stared out the window, watching the city blur past. Derek and I were engaged for 2 years. I thought we were building something together. But when he got the promotion to senior partner, suddenly I wasn't suitable for his position. The words tasted bitter. Apparently I was fine for a struggling lawyer, but not for someone with social obligations. And he left you for someone more suitable. Senator Morrison's daughter. Maya's laugh was hollow. Blonde, beautiful, trust fund, everything I'm not. Derek said I should be grateful he was honest about it instead of stringing me along. She wiped at her eyes, surprised to find them damp. God, listen to me, dumping my sob story on a complete stranger. Not a stranger, Adrian said quietly. Not any more. Something in his tone made her look at him. Those pale eyes were fixed on her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. For a moment, the space between them seemed charged, electric. "This is it," James announced from the front seat, pulling up to a boutique that Maya recognized from magazine spreads. The kind of place she'd never dreamed of entering. "I can't afford this," Maya whispered, staring at the gleaming windows. "You're not paying," Adrian said firmly, "and before you argue, consider this. If we're going to convince people we're together, you need to look the part. Let me help you." The next hour passed in a blur of silken satin, of sales assistants who treated Adrian like visiting royalty, and Maya like a princess by extension. Dress after dress was brought out, each more beautiful than the last, but Adrian rejected them all with small shakes of his head. Until Maya stepped out in the midnight blue gown. The shop fell silent. Maya caught sight of herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The dress hugged her curves perfectly, the colour bringing out the deep brown of her eyes and making her skin glow like porcelain. "Perfect," Adrian breathed, and the raw hunger in his voice made heat pool low in her belly. "Sir," the boutique owner approached carefully, her voice nervous. "Should I have it packaged, your—" "Yes," Adrian cut her off sharply, "and the shoes, the jewellery, everything." As the staff bustled around them, packaging purchases, Maya found herself studying Adrian's reflection in the mirror, the way the employees deferred to him, the nervous energy whenever they started to address him, the expensive car, the driver, the casual way he'd dropped thousands of dollars without blinking. "Who are you really?" she whispered. Adrian met her eyes in the mirror. "Someone who wants to help you." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I can give you right now." He stepped closer, his hand settling on her waist. Even through the silk, his touch burned. "Trust me, Maya. Can you do that?" She should say no. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was too much, too fast, too good to be true. Men like Adrian didn't rescue women like her. This was all some elaborate game, and she was the punchline. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something that made her breath catch, something genuine and fierce and protective. "Okay," she whispered. "I trust you." His smile was devastating. "Good. Because Maya—" His thumb traced along her jawline, the touch feather-light but somehow possessive. "Tonight might change everything. Are you sure you want this?" Maya's heart raced. She didn't understand what was happening, didn't understand why this impossibly perfect man had walked into her life, or why he looked at her like she was precious beyond measure. All she knew was that for the first time in months she felt alive. "Yes," she said, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. "I'm sure." Adrian's eyes darkened, and something predatory flickered across his face before he smoothed it away. "Then let's go make some people very sorry they ever underestimated you." As they left the boutique, Maya caught the owner's whispered conversation with her assistant. "Do you know who that was?" "The Alpha King himself. I can't believe she doesn't recognize him." Maya's steps faltered, but Adrian's hand at her back kept her moving forward. Alpha King. That was impossible. Alpha Kings were myths, stories, things that existed in paranormal romance novels, not in real life, certainly not in her life. But as Adrian helped her into the car, his touch careful and reverent, Maya found herself wondering if maybe, just maybe, her quiet little existence was about to become something extraordinary, even if she had no idea what that might cost her. The grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel had never looked more magnificent. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across marble floors, and the city's elite glittered like jewels against the opulent backdrop. Maya had attended this gala for 3 years running, always feeling like an imposter in her discount dress and borrowed jewellery. Tonight was different. Adrian's hand rested possessively at the small of her back as they approached the entrance, his touch burning through the silk of her midnight blue gown. Maya had never felt more beautiful, more confident, more like she belonged somewhere important. The conversations died as they entered. Maya felt dozens of eyes turn their way, heard the sharp intake of breath from her colleagues clustered near the champagne fountain. Jennifer's glass slipped from nerveless fingers, shattering against the marble with a sound like breaking ice. "Maya!" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "Is that really you?" But Maya's attention was fixed on the man standing across the room, his arm around a willowy blonde in designer everything. Derek. Her ex-fiancé turned at the disturbance, his practised smile faltering when he saw her. "Well, well," Derek said, approaching with the confidence that had once attracted her to him. "Maya, you look—" His eyes travelled over her transformation, and something ugly flickered in their depths. "Different." "She looks stunning," Adrian said quietly, but his voice carried across the suddenly silent space around them. Every word was precise, cultured, and edged with something that made Derek take an involuntary step backward. Derek's gaze shifted to Adrian, and Maya watched colour drain from his face. Recognition dawned slowly, followed by something that looked suspiciously like terror. I don't believe we've been introduced," Derek stammered, extending a trembling hand that Adrian ignored completely. "No," Adrian agreed, his pale eyes glacial. "We haven't." The blonde on Derek's arm, Vivian Morrison, Maya remembered, stepped forward with a tinkling laugh. "Maya, darling, what a surprise to see you here. I wasn't sure you'd be able to afford the tickets this year after, well, you know, your circumstances." Maya felt heat flood her cheeks, the old shame rising like a familiar tide. But before she could respond, Adrian moved. Nothing dramatic, just a slight shift in posture, but suddenly the temperature in their small circle seemed to drop 20 degrees. "I'm sorry," Adrian said, his voice soft and deadly. "Did you just insult my companion?" Vivian's laugh died. She looked between Derek and Adrian, confusion clear on her perfectly made-up face. No, I was just—" "You were just leaving," Adrian finished, and though his tone remained conversational, there was something underneath it that made Maya's skin prickle with awareness. Power, real, tangible power that had nothing to do with money or social status. Derek grabbed Vivian's elbow. "Come on, Viv, let's go find our table." But Vivian, apparently oblivious to the danger radiating from Adrian, pressed on. "Really, Derek, aren't you going to introduce us to Maya's friend? Though I have to say, Maya, this is quite a change from your usual type. Almost like you're trying to prove something." The words hit their mark. Maya felt herself shrinking inward, the beautiful gown suddenly feeling like a costume, like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. "She is proving something," Adrian said, and his voice cut through the ballroom's ambient noise like a blade. Every conversation around them stopped. "She's proving that she's everything." The simple words landed with the force of a physical blow. Maya stared at him, something warm and golden blooming in her chest. "Everything what?" Vivian asked with a sneer. "Everything pathetic? Everything desperate? Really, the lengths some people will go to?" Adrian moved then, not toward Vivian, but simply straightening to his full height, and Maya felt rather than saw the shift in the room's energy. Conversations didn't just stop, people backed away. A circle of space formed around them, as if Adrian carried his own gravitational field. "You will apologize," Adrian said quietly, but his voice carried to every corner of the ballroom. "You will apologize to her, and then you will leave." "I most certainly will not," Vivian sputtered, but her voice had lost its confidence. "Do you know who my father is? Do you know who I am?" Adrian smiled then, and it was the most terrifying expression Maya had ever seen on a human face. "Do you know who I am?" Derek went paper white. "Vivian!" he hissed, grabbing her arm. "Stop talking, now!" But Vivian was past listening. "This is ridiculous! Maya, really? Hiring some actor to play your boyfriend? It's embarrassing. You're embarrassing yourself and everyone here who has to watch this pathetic display." The silence that followed was absolute. Adrian took one step forward, and Derek actually whimpered. "Your father," Adrian said conversationally, "sits on the Northern Territories Council, a position he holds at my discretion. Your fiancé's law firm handles contracts for my companies, contracts worth approximately $50 million annually, also at my discretion." Maya watched the blood drain from both Derek's and Vivian's faces. "Now," Adrian continued, his voice never rising above a murmur, "you are going to apologize to Maya, you are going to mean it, and then you are going to walk away and pretend this conversation never happened. Because if you don't—" He paused, letting the threat hang in the air. "Well, let's just say discretion is a wonderful thing." Vivian's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Around them Maya could hear whispers starting, her name carried on currents of shocked recognition. I apologize," Vivian whispered finally, not meeting Maya's eyes. "I spoke out of turn." "You spoke out of malice," Adrian corrected, "but the apology is noted." He turned that terrible smile on Derek. "I believe you have something to add." Derek looked like he might be sick. "Maya, God, Maya, I'm sorry for everything. The things I said when we—" He swallowed hard. "You deserved better. You deserve better." And then they were gone, melting into the crowd like they'd never existed. Maya stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. Around them, conversation slowly resumed, but she could feel eyes on her, feel the weight of speculation and sudden interest. "Who are you?" she whispered, turning to face Adrian. "Who are you, really?" Adrian's expression softened, the dangerous edge melting away as he cupped her face gently in his hands. "I'm someone who's been looking for you," he said simply, "someone who sees exactly what you are." "And what am I?" "Everything," he repeated, and this time Maya believed him. The rest of the gala passed in a blur of introductions and deferential conversations. Maya found herself move through the crowd like visiting royalty, Adrian's hand never leaving her back, his presence a shield against any potential cruelty. People who had ignored her for years suddenly wanted to chat, to compliment her dress, to ask about her plans. It should have felt triumphant. It should have felt like vindication. Instead, Maya felt like she was floating outside her own body, watching someone else live her life. When they finally escaped to the hotel's private garden, Maya's hands were shaking. "I don't understand any of this," she whispered, staring up at the stars barely visible through the city's glow. "Tonight, the way people looked at you, the way Derek, he was terrified of you, actually terrified." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "There are things about me, about my life, that would be difficult to explain. Try me." "Maya?" Adrian turned to face her, and in the moonlight his eyes seemed to glow. "What if I told you that everything you thought you knew about the world was only half the story?" Before she could answer, before she could process what he meant, Adrian leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. "Give me tonight," he murmured against her skin. "Let me have tonight before everything changes." Maya closed her eyes, breathing in his scent, feeling the solid warmth of him against her. She didn't understand what was happening, didn't understand the power he wielded so effortlessly, or why he looked at her like she was precious beyond measure. All she knew was that she'd never felt safer in her entire life. Even as every instinct she possessed whispered that safety with a man like Adrian, might be the most dangerous thing of all. The limousine's interior felt suffocating despite its spacious luxury. Maya sat pressed against the far window, her beautiful gown suddenly feeling like borrowed armour that no longer fit. The gala's golden lights blurred past as they drove through the city, but all she could think about was the way Derek had looked at Adrian, that bone-deep terror. The way people had backed away like Adrian carried some invisible force field of power. "You're quiet," Adrian observed, his voice gentle in the darkness between them. Maya turned to face him, studying his profile in the passing streetlights. Even relaxed, there was something predatory about the way he held himself, something that whispered of barely leashed power. "The way Derek looked at you," she said finally. "I've never seen him scared of anything, but he was terrified, actually terrified." Adrian was silent for a long moment. "Maya," and Vivian, when you mentioned her father's position, you said, 'at your discretion.' Not your company's discretion. Yours." Maya's voice grew stronger as the pieces clicked into place. "The staff at the boutique, the way they kept almost calling you something else. The driver tonight, he started to say, 'Your Majesty,' before you cut him off." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Maya, let me explain." "Oh, God." The words escaped her in a whisper as understanding crashed over her like ice water. "You're him. You're actually him. Adrian Blackthorne, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories." The silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. Maya felt her world tilting on its axis, everything she thought she knew reshaping itself into something impossible. "Yes," Adrian said quietly, "I am." Maya's breath caught. She pressed herself further against the window, her heart hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. "You're the Alpha King! The Alpha King! And oh God, what did I do? I asked the Alpha King to be my fake boyfriend. I humiliated myself in front of the most powerful man in the Northern Territories." "You asked for help," Adrian said gently, "and I gave it freely." "But why?" The question burst out of her, raw and desperate. "Why would you help someone like me? I'm nobody. I'm a bank teller who lives in a studio apartment and shops at thrift stores. You're—" She gestured helplessly at him, at the opulent car around them. "You're everything I'm not." "Maya, you don't understand." But Maya wasn't listening anymore. Panic clawed at her throat, making it hard to breathe. This was all wrong. All of it. Men like Adrian, Alpha Kings, didn't notice women like her, let alone help them. This had to be some kind of mistake, some cosmic joke she didn't understand. "Stop the car," she whispered. "Maya, stop the car." The limousine pulled to a halt at the next red light. Maya didn't wait for James to open the door. She fumbled with the handle herself, desperate to escape the suffocating weight of her own stupidity. "Maya, don't—" Adrian reached for her, but she was already stumbling out onto the sidewalk in her heels and beautiful gown. I can't do this," she said, backing away from the car. "I can't. This is crazy. You're crazy. I'm crazy. This whole thing is insane." Adrian stepped out after her, his movement fluid and predatory, even in the formal suit. "Maya, please, let me take you home. Let me explain." "Explain what? That you felt sorry for the pathetic human who embarrassed herself in front of you? That this was all some elaborate charity case?" Tears burned behind Maya's eyes. "I should have known better. I should have known someone like you wouldn't actually want someone like me." Pain flashed across Adrian's features. "That's not what this is." "Then what?" Maya demanded. "What could this possibly be? You're the Alpha King. I read about you in magazines. You date supermodels and heiresses. You have diplomatic meetings with world leaders. And I'm—" Her voice cracked. "I'm nothing." "You're not nothing," Adrian said fiercely, taking a step toward her. "You're—" But Maya was already running, her heels clicking against the concrete as she fled down the sidewalk. Behind her, she heard Adrian call her name, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The beautiful gown flowed around her like water as she ran, and for a wild moment she felt like Cinderella fleeing the ball at midnight, her carriage about to turn back into a pumpkin. Except this was worse, because Cinderella had been a princess in disguise. Maya was just a nobody who'd gotten ideas above her station. She ran until her lungs burned and her feet bled in the expensive shoes, until she reached her neighbourhood and the shabby building where she'd lived for 2 years. Only when she was safely inside her studio apartment did she allow herself to break down. Maya collapsed onto her second-hand couch, still wearing the midnight blue gown, and sobbed, for the humiliation, for the impossible hope that had bloomed in her chest when Adrian looked at her like she mattered, for the cruel joke the universe had played by dangling everything she'd ever wanted just close enough to touch, the Alpha King. She'd asked the Alpha King to pretend to be her boyfriend, and he'd said yes. Why? Why would he do that? It didn't make sense. Nothing about tonight made sense. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You dropped this in the car." A star. Maya looked down and realised her clutch was missing. Her keys, her ID, everything was in that purse. She was about to text back when another message came through. "I'm not going anywhere, Maya. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Even his kindness felt like a knife twist. Of course he was being gentle with her. That's what powerful men did with broken things. They handled them carefully before setting them aside. Maya turned off her phone and curled up on the couch in her beautiful borrowed gown. Tomorrow she would have to face reality. Tomorrow she would have to remember her place in the world and stop dreaming of things that could never be. Tonight she would let herself grieve for the fairy tale that had lasted exactly 1 evening. 3 floors below, in a black sedan parked across the street, Adrian sat in silence. He could smell Maya's tears from here, could feel the echo of her pain through the bond she didn't yet understand. Every instinct he possessed screamed at him to go to her, to comfort her, to explain everything, but she needed time, space to process what she'd learned. Pushing her now would only drive her further away. His phone buzzed with a call from Marcus, his second in command. "The Morrison girl and her lawyer fiancé have been handled," Marcus reported. "No more problems from that quarter." "Good." Adrian's voice was rough. "And Maya?" "Protective detail is in place. She's safe." Adrian closed his eyes. Safe from external threats, maybe. But who would protect her from the pain he'd inadvertently caused by not telling her the truth from the beginning? "Sir?" Marcus's voice was careful. "Perhaps it's time to consider other options. There are many suitable—" "No." The word came out as a growl. "There is no one else. There will never be anyone else." Because Maya didn't understand yet, but she would. The woman crying herself to sleep 3 floors above was his mate, his queen, the other half of his soul, and he would wait as long as it took for her to see it too, even if the waiting killed him. 2 weeks passed like a strange, suspended dream. Maya returned to her routine, work at the bank, coffee at the same shop, quiet evenings in her studio apartment. On the surface, everything was exactly as it had been before Adrian Blackthorne walked into her life. But underneath, everything had changed. Her coffee was always paid for when she arrived at the shop, the barista explaining with a confused smile that someone called ahead. Her car, which had been making worrying noises for months, was mysteriously repaired when she came out of work one evening. Her landlord stopped by to inform her that an anonymous benefactor had prepaid her rent for the next 6 months. Maya knew who was responsible. She also knew she should be angry about it. Instead, she felt something dangerous blooming in her chest, something that felt suspiciously like hope. "You're glowing," her co-worker Janet observed during their lunch break. "Seriously glowing. What's your secret? New skincare routine?" Maya touched her cheek self-consciously. She had been sleeping better despite everything. Her dreams were full of silver eyes and gentle hands, of a voice that called her name like a prayer. "Just getting more rest," she lied. The truth was more complicated. The truth was that she woke up every morning with the strangest sensation that someone was watching over her, keeping her safe. It should have been creepy. Instead, it felt like being wrapped in invisible arms. Her phone buzzed with a text. It had been doing that every few days, short messages that never demanded a response. "The roses in the park are blooming. You'd love them." Amaya stared at the message, her heart doing that familiar flutter. She'd deleted his number 3 times, but somehow the messages still came through, not pushy or demanding, just present, like he was sharing his day with her. She found herself walking through the park on her way home, detouring past the rose garden without quite admitting why. The flowers were spectacular, deep red blooms that filled the air with their perfume. Maya stood there for a long time, breathing in their scent and wondering if Adrian had stood in this same spot, thinking of her. "Maya?" She turned and her heart stopped. Not Adrian, her sister Emma, looking perfectly put together in her designer suit and judgment. "Emma, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing." Emma's eyes swept over Maya critically. "You look different. Better. Have you been eating?" Maya almost laughed. Trust Emma to make even a compliment sound like an insult. "I'm fine. You didn't answer my question." "I was in the city for a client meeting. Thought I'd stop by and see how you were handling your situation." Emma's tone made it clear she expected to find Maya wallowing in post-gala humiliation. "What situation?" "Oh, come on, Maya. The whole office is talking about your little performance at the Morrison Gala. Showing up with some actor you hired to make Derek jealous. Really, even for you, that was pathetic." The words hit like physical blows. Maya felt herself shrinking inward, all the confidence she'd been slowly rebuilding crumbling away. "That's not what happened," she whispered. "Isn't it? God, Maya, when are you going to learn? Men like that, powerful, wealthy, handsome men, they don't want women like us. They don't want women like you." Emma's voice was sharp with frustrated affection. "You're setting yourself up for heartbreak, again." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You've always had these delusions of grandeur. Remember when you wanted to be a writer, when you thought you could be an artist? You live in fantasy land, Maya, and it's time to wake up. Derek was right to leave you. At least he was honest about what you are." "And what am I?" Maya asked quietly, tears burning behind her eyes. "Nobody special, just like the rest of us. The sooner you accept that, the happier you'll be." Emma checked her watch. "I have to go. Try to stay grounded, okay? Stop chasing fairy tales." Maya watched her sister walk away, Emma's words echoing in her head like a cruel mantra. Nobody special, just like the rest of us. Stop chasing fairy tales. She made it back to her apartment before the tears came. Big, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Because Emma was right, wasn't she? Maya had always been a dreamer, always reaching for things beyond her grasp. And look where it had gotten her. She was sitting on her couch in the dark, still crying when she felt it. A strange warmth in her chest, like golden thread being pulled taut. For a wild moment she could have sworn she felt someone else's pain mixing with her own. Someone else's desperate need to comfort and protect. The knock on her door was so soft she almost missed it. Maya wiped her eyes and peered through the peephole. Adrian stood in the hallway, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, looking more uncertain than she'd ever seen him. "Go away!" she called through the door. "Maya, please, I can feel—" He stopped, his voice rough. "I know you're hurting. Let me help." "You can't help. Nobody can help. This is who I am. Nobody's special, just like Emma said." Silence stretched between them, broken only by Maya's ragged breathing. Then Adrian's voice came again, softer now. "May I tell you what I see when I look at you?" Despite herself, Maya found herself listening. "I see a woman who's brave enough to ask a stranger for help when she's desperate. A woman who works 2 jobs to pay for her sick neighbour's groceries. A woman who reads to children at the library on weekends because she loves stories and wants to share that love." His voice was gentle, patient. "I see someone who's been told she's ordinary so many times she believes it, but who blazes like a star when she finally feels safe enough to shine." Fresh tears spilled down Maya's cheeks. "You don't know me." "I know you better than you think. I know you take your coffee with 2 sugars and oat milk. I know you rescue stray cats and cry during animated movies. I know you have a scar on your knee from when you fell off your bike at age 7 and you still sleep with a nightlight because the dark makes you anxious." Adrian's voice was impossibly tender. "I know you, Maya, all of you, and you're not nobody. You're everything." Maya pressed her forehead against the door, her heart hammering. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care about someone like me?" "Because," Adrian said quietly, "you're my mate." The words landed like a physical shock. Maya jerked back from the door, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Mate. The word that belonged in the paranormal romance novels she read, not in real life. "That's impossible," she breathed. "Is it? Haven't you felt it? The connection between us, the way your skin burns when I touch you, the way you dream of silver eyes and wake up feeling like you're missing half your soul?" Maya's knees gave out. She slid down the door until she was sitting on the floor, one hand pressed to her chest where that golden warmth pulsed like a second heartbeat. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Then let me explain. Let me in, Maya. Please." For a long moment Maya sat frozen. Emma's words warred with Adrian's, cynicism battling hope in her chest. This was crazy, impossible. Things like this didn't happen to women like her. But what if they did? What if, for once in her life, she was brave enough to reach for something extraordinary? With shaking hands, Maya unlocked the door. Adrian stood there like he'd been carved from marble, his silver eyes blazing with relief and something deeper, something that looked like love. "Thank you," he breathed, and stepped inside. And for the first time since she'd run from his car 2 weeks ago, Maya felt like she could finally breathe again. Maya woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that definitely didn't belong to her studio apartment. For a moment she lay still, breathing in the scent of cedar and something darker, more primal. Adrian's scent. It wrapped around her like a second skin, soothing and intoxicating all at once. The penthouse bedroom was magnificent, all clean lines and masculine elegance, but Maya barely noticed the luxury. Her attention was focused entirely on the man sleeping beside her, one arm draped possessively across her waist. In sleep, Adrian looked younger, the lines of power and responsibility smoothed away. Maya reached out carefully, tracing the strong line of his jaw with one finger. At her touch, his eyes opened immediately, silver and warm and completely focused on her. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Hi." Maya felt shy suddenly, hyper-aware that she was wearing one of his shirts and nothing else. Last night, did you really explain about mates and supernatural bonds, or did I dream all of that?" Adrian's mouth curved into a soft smile. "Very real, all of it." He shifted closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. "How do you feel?" Maya considered the question seriously. The golden warmth in her chest had settled into something steady and constant, like a second heartbeat that matched his. She felt complete, whole in a way she'd never experienced before. "Different," she said finally. "Like I've been walking around my whole life with a piece missing, and I finally found it." "That's exactly what it's like," Adrian agreed, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "The bond recognizes what the soul already knows." They spent the morning talking. Adrian explained the supernatural world that existed alongside the human one, shifters and vampires, fey courts and ancient magic. He told her about his responsibilities as Alpha King, the territories under his protection, the delicate balance he maintained between worlds. "And you want me to be part of all that?" Maya asked, still struggling to believe it. "I want you to be my partner in all of it," Adrian corrected. "My queen, my equal." His eyes searched hers. "But only if it's what you want. The bond doesn't force choice, Maya. It just clarifies it." Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed insistently. Emma's name flashed on the screen, and Maya's stomach clenched with familiar anxiety. "Answer it," Adrian said gently. "You don't have to face anything alone anymore." Maya accepted the call, putting it on speaker. "Emma?" "Maya, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all morning. I wanted to apologize for yesterday. The things I said were cruel and—" Emma's voice broke off suddenly. "Where are you? That doesn't sound like your apartment." "I'm with Adrian," Maya said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Adrian? Maya, honey, please tell me you're not still playing this game. I know I was harsh yesterday, but it's not a game." Maya looked at Adrian, drawing strength from his presence. "Emma, I need you to understand something. Adrian he's important to me, more important than I can explain. And the things you said yesterday about me being nobody special, you're wrong." Silence stretched across the phone line. Then Emma's voice, smaller now. "Maya, you sound different." "I feel different, better, happy." Maya smiled, realizing it was completely true. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "With him? Maya, be careful. Men like that—" "Love women like me," Maya interrupted firmly. "At least, this one does." After she hung up, Adrian pulled her close. "I'm proud of you," he murmured against her hair. "For what?" "For claiming your worth, for standing up for yourself, for choosing us." The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Adrian introduced her to his world gradually. Meetings with his inner circle, protocol lessons with his patient assistant, dress fittings for formal events. Maya learned about pack dynamics and supernatural politics, about the weight of wearing a crown and the responsibility that came with power. It should have been overwhelming. Instead, Maya felt herself blooming like a flower finally given proper sunlight. The claiming ceremony took place in the grand ballroom of Adrian's estate, witnessed by representatives from every major supernatural faction. Maya stood before the assembled crowd in a gown of midnight blue, the same colour as the dress from their first gala, but this one was made specifically for her, fitted perfectly to her body and embroidered with silver thread that caught the light like stars. Adrian wore traditional ceremonial robes, looking every inch the powerful Alpha King he was. But when he looked at her, Maya saw only the man who'd held her while she cried, who'd waited patiently for her to find her courage. "Maya Catherine Torres," Adrian said, his voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "Do you accept the bond between us? Do you choose to stand as my mate, my queen, my equal partner in all things?" Maya's heart hammered, but her voice was steady. "I choose you," she said clearly, the words ringing with conviction. "I choose us. I choose this life we're building together." The golden thread between them blazed to life, visible now even to those without supernatural senses. Gasps rose from the crowd as the bond manifested, connecting them with threads of pure light. Adrian stepped forward, placing a crown of silver and sapphires on Maya's head. It should have felt heavy, but instead it felt like coming home. "My queen," he murmured, for her ears alone. "My king," she whispered back, and kissed him while the assembled crowd erupted in celebration. 3 months later, Maya stood in the same coffee shop where it had all begun, but everything had changed. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her wedding ring catching the afternoon light. No crown, no formal gown, just Maya. But she carried herself differently now, with the quiet confidence of a woman who finally knew her worth. "Maya?" Jennifer appeared beside her in line, looking nervous and uncertain. I heard about your engagement. Congratulations." "Thank you," Maya said gracefully. "I wanted to apologize for the things we said that day. We were awful to you." Maya studied her former tormentor, feeling only mild sympathy. "You were. But I understand why. Hurt people hurt people. I hope you find something that makes you happy enough to be kind." Jennifer flushed and hurried away. Maya ordered her coffee, still 2 sugars and oat milk, and settled into the booth where Adrian had been sitting that first day. Her booth now in the coffee shop Adrian had quietly purchased and turned into a community space with free Wi-Fi and job placement services. Her phone buzzed with a text from her husband. "Missing you. See you at home tonight." And Maya smiled, typing back quickly. "Always. Love you too. Home." She'd learned what that word really meant. Not a place, but a person. A choice. A golden thread that bound 2 souls together and made them stronger than they'd ever been apart. The bell above the door chimed, and a young woman entered, looking around nervously. She was thin, obviously struggling, with the same haunted look Maya used to see in her own mirror. Maya watched as the girl approached the counter, counting coins with shaking hands. When she came up short, Maya stood. "I'll cover it," Maya told the barista quietly, "and whatever she needs to eat." The girl turned, tears in her eyes. I don't have anything to give you." "You don't need to give me anything," Maya said gently. "Sometimes we just need someone to be kind. Pass it forward when you can." As Maya left the coffee shop, her heart full and her future bright, she thought about the woman she'd been just months ago. Broken, believing herself worthless, convinced she deserved nothing but scraps. She'd been wrong about so many things, but most of all, she'd been wrong about herself. Maya climbed into the car where Adrian waited, leaning across to kiss him hello. He tasted like home and forever, and all the dreams she'd been too afraid to reach for. "Good day?" he asked, threading their fingers together. "Perfect day," Maya replied, and meant it completely. After all, when you finally found your everything, every day was perfect. Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts on these fated mate stories. If you'd like to support me, please subscribe. It's free and it helps more people hear these stories of finding your perfect match.